All right, so what this video is going to talk about and show is how we're going to work with the grid. So this should be your grid paper that you already have set up. Okay, and most of you will have your picture with your grid on it just on your iPad. I have it printed out so that I can show you. Then what you're going to do, it's best just to kind of line them up together and just start working from box to box. So how we're gonna draw this then is I'm gonna look at this box one at the top right or top left, look at this box one and top left. There's nothing actually in that box, so then I will move on to the next one. Okay, this next box doesn't really start until about, if this is the halfway mark, a little over halfway, right? That is when this part of the jar will start. And you can kind of mark things if you really need to, go back and mark things out, make smaller boxes if that's helpful. But then you're gonna draw whatever you see just in that box alone. So I'm sticking to drawing more so shapes than what the object actually is set up as. Okay, so this is just more to me like a curved line. I'm working on that, I'm making more of a curved line. We have another bump that goes underneath here, kind of goes down. When I'm looking at this, I can also see that this thickness almost touches this bottom line right here. So maybe that's like a guide point for me, is once we get to this point, the thickness of the curve is gonna kind of almost touch that very corner, just like it does here, and we'll curve it back up. If you are someone who's gonna need this printed out, hopefully you already told me, because I will print these out ahead of time for students who would like that. The rest of this kind of goes down, and it looks like I'm starting to make things maybe a little too close together. I might have to angle this out a little more, because I still have a lot of a jar left. So you might have to keep going back and forth and adjusting some of these lines so that it's actually pretty accurate. We're going for more realistic drawings, so keep that in mind. Working on just the shape values, so right here is kind of part of this, right? Ends there. I can add this line for the shadow. Once I feel like this box is fairly set up and ready to go, then I can move on to the next one, and I'll just keep doing that. I'm going to keep filling that in. One of your very, very last steps that you're going to take is adding all of the value scales within this. I would highly suggest to take out this drawing technique worksheet again. This has the value scale that you're going to be following, right? The 4 steps that we've been using every time we've been home. You're also going to be using all of these different techniques within your boxes. So we're not coloring this when we're working on this. Within each box, we are going to do a different drawing technique to show the value. So to start with, this box is empty. There wasn't anything in there, so I can leave that one plain. You should have 12 boxes altogether. We have 5 different techniques that we were working on: hatching, cross-hatching, blending, stippling, and scumbling. I would suggest to start with working on stippling. Why might you do that? This one takes a long time. You should have already realized that. It also is very tedious, so it just, like I said before, it takes a while. It's time consuming. So I would start with this one first to get this one out of the way. The other thing I would suggest is when you're looking at your drawing, maybe for the stippling part, since you need at least 2 of these squares to be stippling, because you're going to do 2 of each of these, you should pick probably a square that's smaller. That's kind of the little tip and trick. The smaller the square, the less work you have to do for stippling. So you could do this one. This one has very little in it, but I at least need to see 2 boxes out of all of these that have the stippling technique with it. So maybe I'll start here. This will be one of my stippling boxes, right? And all I see at this very top, it's very, very light. So all I would have to do is maybe just make a few little dots filling in that space, right? There's something there, but it should be fairly light and white, and that's it. That stippling one then is finished. Now I need to find one more box where I'm gonna do the stippling to. And if it's this one, awesome. If it's any of these other ones, that works too. Maybe look for one that has less color to go on. I'm just gonna work with this one down here. Obviously yours is gonna be a little bit different based off of what picture you took or how you took your picture. And just remember, you're looking at the values and matching the values up that you see in your picture. That's why it's very, very helpful if you have this technique sheet out, right? I can take out my picture, you should have it on your iPad, and look at values. Like, what value would this match with? Probably one of the darker ones. It's not completely black, so probably more so this value to start with in this area down here. You're just gonna work with the values. If it's lighter, it should be lighter. You should be able to see that. Anywhere that it's darker, it should get darker. And we're also adding the shadings to this. I'm using a Sharpie pen. You might be using a Sharpie marker to start with. You'll be using one of them depending on which one you have access to. So this should also help with the stippling, being that it's just smaller little marks. It's not a pencil. You'll be using the Sharpie pen or marker depending on which one you have on your entire thing until we get to the blending. For blending, you'll be using a black color pencil. Okay, so I've done 2 stippling ones. I did those right away so I can cross them off my list. Now I have to do 2 of the other ones. So I would say whatever just you're more comfortable with, maybe doing that on the harder areas or the ones that have more to it. I'm probably gonna start with working on scumbling. I think the scumbling one would look nice right here with all of these little dots that I have. So that will just be the next one that I continue working on, and then I'll probably choose, I don't want them to be right next to each other, so I'll probably choose one over here that also shows scumbling. Okay, at this point I did stippling. I can cross that out. If it's helpful for you to check it off, go ahead and do that. And then I also did the scumbling. I have 3 left to do that I have to do twice. I'll probably do the cross hatching next, and then hatching, and then I'll leave blending for the end. Okay, I just finished cross hatching. I did that at the top here and at this very bottom. I'll probably do the hatching next then and leave the blending for last. I have done all the techniques besides blending, and what you're doing with blending is you are going to take a black color pencil. You can borrow one from me if you need to, and then basically you are going to use the value scale blend and shade, working with the boxes you have. So I'll work on this one and this one for my 2 boxes, and really I only have one more left, so the last 2 boxes, I have one that's completely open, so that one doesn't count. The last 2 boxes that you have open, you can basically do whatever technique you want with it. I'm just going to stick with blending for the last 3.